Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy, and this is of particular note if you drive an electric vehicle. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now we are joined by Neil, 10th Man, Adam Meakin, who's joining right in the middle of my introduction, of course. Who else did I miss? Refracted Curvature, Adam, 10th Man, Neil, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good morning, good morning.
Hey, good morning. Hello.
Hello! Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curve?
I hope that's not refracted.
Hello.
If it's refracted, it sure as hell isn't geometric.
They don't claim it.
Hold on.
Did you say they don't claim it's geometric, other than in the physical geometric sphere edge calculations that show it as a horizon marked with an X? Other than that, you mean? So, any evidence of Earth curve?
No, they claim Earth curve, but there's no evidence of Earth curve.
Fisheye lenses.
If there's no Earth curve, what are they lining their sextant up to?
The horizon. But we only have one horizon, and the horizon in there, begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator, was, open brackets, before it was debunked by the Black Swan, close brackets, geometric. Now it's not. It's, according to them, refracted, therefore not geometric. The horizon we use for the sextant gives you a tool on a boat that's moving all over the place of establishing horizontal.
Can you acquire an angle with a refracted line?
No, you cannot.
I know what the horizon is. I'm just referencing them as to what they say the horizon was. Let's say over the past year or so, that physical edge has disappeared, but it appears when they go and discuss celestial navigation, they're reifying it again, because that physical edge is the thing that they're adjusting to in their dip correction. They're making a positive statement that the horizon is the leading physical edge of a ball. That's why it's down, and that's why they're adjusting to it based on height.
They've also
they've
been
gone
told,
back.
Adam, that they're correcting it because it's refracted.
That physical edge?
Yeah, so their response has been to say, if we're doing dip correction because we're measuring from a geometric horizon, now I'm hijacking your point, so I'll just make it so it doesn't get lost. They can't have that Black Swan, there is no geometric horizon to be measuring with a sextant. But when I point out that Black Swan, the response has been, no, the dip correction is because we're dealing with refraction, i.e. a refracted horizon.
We went to great trouble to demonstrate that the dip correction matches the Earth curvature, affirming that it's an adjustment to a physical edge. There's no additional adjustment for refraction in there. The curve, as he demonstrates, matches his so-called Earth curve.
No, I appreciate they're pulling this out of their ass.
Well, they're contradicting themselves as they anti-flat Earth their answer.
Indeed.
It's not all
If you're
answer.
measuring with a sextant, you're not measuring something that's got a bent line, i.e. refracted, to correct to geometric tangent point when the correction makes it horizontal.
I was looking at the disclaimer before your show. It says that the flat Earth model is an archaic model that's been scientifically falsified. Just to leave the scientifically part out, but as an archaic model, I agree. And
So do I.
since the globe is a flat Earth model, isn't that a conundrum for them?
Yes, I agree entirely. Now, up until now, I've pointed out that as a model, if you're going to show a pizza pie from Flat Earth Society or an azimuthal equidistant projection and claim that's a model of Earth, that's a pretty archaic way of thinking, or if it's come from a certain timeline, a pretty archaic way of perceiving things if you stereotype everybody who claimed to believe that at the time. So I agree, on principle, with the first half of the statement, ignoring the second half of science, which we may come back to when we ask that question in housekeeping. However, as John's just pointed out, the globe is a flat Earth model. The globe was created by use of flat Earth elevation angle measurements. Therefore, if the Wikipedia statement below my video, otherwise deemed the tramp stamp, is to be taken literally, they are saying that the flat Earth is an archaic model, and by extension, the globe which has been based on that must also be equally archaic. It's based on the flat Earth model they're poo-pooing when they say it's archaic. But your globes come from that. Your angle has come from a flat Earth, and you've used that to make a sphere in a model. Good point, John.
Well, words have meanings, and I find it interesting they choose that, because it's a little bit of poison in the well. If you first read it, just skim read it, archaic, you think antiquated, wrong, incorrect, but it isn't. Archaic just means old. I've got it. I've pulled it up here. Very old or old-fashioned. Now, the statement they use kind of makes my point for me. Doesn't mean the things are wrong. They're actually very correct. Prisons are run on archaic methods. Probably the best way to run a prison, using that old, well-tried and trusted method. It's an archaic. But to me, there's no negative intonation in the word archaic there, even though it's been used to provide that. But if you actually look at the word, it just supports its historicity. It's been around a long, long time.
Okay, well, it's saying this model of a flat Earth world has been around a long time, and here's where we have to branch into the full statement they make, has been disproven by science. Is that what it says, John? I haven't got it in front of me. We're branching into the science bit, John. He's obviously got his hands full. So...
Oh, I'm sorry.
What's the second half that we weren't going to get into, but Adam's essentially saying because archaic only infers old-fashioned, it doesn't have any negative connotations until you get to the second statement.
Right, that's the scientifically falsified. Now, that's not true. We know that demonstrably, that it's never been scientifically tested. It's not even a question of why or how. It's a question of what is.
Yes. It's outside the purview of science on account of the fact that it's not dealing with a cause and effect relationship. You're not establishing what caused a phenomena in nature when you ask about a model that is claimed to be old-fashioned. This old-fashioned model's been disproven by systematic experimentation based on hypothesis, based on natural phenomena that you need to explain the cause of. Well, hold on. There is no natural phenomena. You're talking about an archaic model. Well, number one, none of us here ascribe to models. They might be useful, they might be used, we might use them. What we don't do is reify them into our physical world. Therefore we can, and may, in time, along with other people side by side singing Kumbaya, realise the beauty of the heliocentric model and its usefulness. And we can awe in our beauty at how Earth could be thought of as being used antipodal underneath other people stood on the same surface, we will maybe look back at that beauty. But we do not reify that into our world. And when we look back with fond memories of the archaic globe that came from flat Earth elevation angle models, then we'll laugh. Or admire the beauty of the heliocentric model we're definitely not standing on.
Well, that's almost it. But the elevation angles didn't come from a model. They come from reality.
My bad. As soon as I said it, I realised, but I didn't correct myself.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was incorrect. Right, the flat Earth angle measurements that we're talking about are just angle measurements, taken from the surface. Don't need to preface it with flat Earth. It's implied because of the nature of measuring an angle. So I'm going to stop saying flat Earth angle measurement. It's just an angle measurement.
Where'd you learn that? On one of your deliveries?
No, there was no real need for triangulating my position when I was out delivering groceries, Neil.
Oh, okay.
I mean, had I have
Obvious.
got lost, I probably wouldn't have reached for the spare sextant in the van, because there wasn't one.
What about when you were in the plane on one of your high rep jobs where you used to make a lot of money?
Yeah, it didn't really come up that the plane lost the ability to navigate and needed to use the backup sextant, and all of their thumbs had been removed, and I was the closest person sitting next to them that could operate that tool under their instruction at the time. That never happened.
Okay, good. But you see what I'm doing here, right?
Not really.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how you got through TSA with a bag of groceries.
I'm just wondering how all the pilots' thumbs would ever be removed so they couldn't use their sextant to take flat Earth elevation angle measurements to triangulate their location. Well, there we go there then. Any evidence that you can acquire an elevation angle from a curved adjacent?
That's ridiculous. How would you, Nathan?
How would I what? Acquire an elevation angle from a curved adjacent? I wouldn't.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, but that's because you can't have a curved adjacent. You've got to have straight flat line to have 90 degrees in reference to a position that you're measuring. That would be a star in this instance. Well, that
But the
requires a flat Earth.
sextant works.
My bad. Go ahead, Neil.
But the sextant works. We're doing it on a globe, Nathan. The sextant works.
By taking flat Earth angle measurements, Neil.
It can still work. You know, the Earth doesn't have to actually measure like a sphere. As long as it seems flat, then the sextant works just fine.
Quite far from your mic, Arwin.
Yeah, a bit.
Well,
Are you being conceptual again, Arwen?
Well, no. He's saying it doesn't.
No,
have to,
logically
it doesn't
consistent.
not have to work on a sphere. That's what he's saying. It doesn't have to be functioning on a sphere. I'm just reversing what he said because he's reversed the negativity of his statement to make it confusing, as Arwin does sometimes. So it doesn't not have to work on a sphere. Yeah, it would have to work on a sphere if it was a sphere. It just doesn't because it isn't, and it does work on a flat plane because it is. There you go, Arwin. I can do that too.
No, that's not what I said. I said
Here we go.
it can work on a sphere as long as it doesn't seem like a sphere.
What?
It could, but it doesn't. Maybe it could in a game or something, but it doesn't in physical reality, Arwin. So your statement's kind of non sequitur. In fact, it is non sequitur.
No, he's saying if in reality it seemed like a sphere, which it doesn't, then you wouldn't be able to use a sextant, I think.
Exactly. But we
And
don't
you-
have to
hold on,
worry
then you
about
wouldn't.
that
Hold on.
because
If
it's
it was a
perfectly
sphere
flat.
and seemed like a sphere, which it isn't, then you wouldn't be able to use a sextant. Well, I completely
Yes.
agree.
Right, but it doesn't seem like a sphere, right? It seems flat, so it works just fine, even though it is a sphere.
Because it seems
That's a
so
non
flat.
sequitur.
No, it seems so flat, which leaves you with the problem of having to measure an angle with something that, according to you, is looking flat, but ultimately only looking flat because it's all a bent line. Well, at which point, if you point the tool at the horizon, your statement, which is ultimately what the black swan... I know where this is going, Arwin. We did this 2 days ago. Anyway, let's get to the end of the statement. paradoxically speaking, you're going to refract the horizon to a position that's non-geometric, or in this case, making it look flat, in quotes. Yeah? And saying, because it looks flat, I can kind of use this tool that measures straight lines with a line that is actually all bent to look flat. No, the tool just measures straight lines. If they're all bent, regardless if it looks all flat or all looks concave, it matters not when the tool is actually just measuring a straight line, are we? That's what it actually does.
No, it does matter whether it looks flat, concave, or like a sphere, because it can only work when it looks flat.
Not looks. You're doing
Yes,
maths
looks.
with straight lines and right angles. What it looks like is irrelevant when you apply the maths to it. Then you're just doing...
Sorry,
Oh, God.
I'm not talking about math. You're bringing in math. I'm talking about the observational instrument, right? So it must appear flat. That's where you get the data. What you do mathematically afterward is your business.
Yeah, this
No, you're
appearing nonsense. It doesn't matter what it appears like when you're doing the geometry. It doesn't matter if it appears anything. What matters is how is it applied and whether or not it works. How it is applied is flat.
You take your reading from the optical instrument with a flat plane. That doesn't mean that it is actually a flat plane geometrically, but it only has to be flat optically because that's the nature of the instrument.
That's a contradiction in terms. No, it does mean it would be flat because it wouldn't work if it wasn't. So you saying, well, just because it looks flat and functions flat doesn't mean it is flat? I know you're packaging up what they're currently saying in comments as stupid as it is, Arwin, and I'm grateful to it. But no, if it walks like a duck and chucks like a duck, it's a duck.
Or a goose.
hold on.
Or a swan.
Hold on. Well, he's got something, but it's using an optical instrument to measure an angle. You're then applying that angle geometrically. If it's got a curved baseline, it's not an angle. It's just nonsensical.
No, but you first use the optical instrument. It's going to be subjected to bending of light thanks to 7/6R. And then after you've done the optical measuring, that's when you start to apply the math. And then you have to get in the real geometry. That's where the spherical geometry gets in. That's where the R value actually hits the home run, right? That's where it integrates with the actual geometry.
No, black swan.
That's when hold on. That's when you invoke the geometry that you just denied.
Exactly, black swan.
No, you're turning it all around.
Don't, Arwin. Now, either I've got two choices here, audience. Arwin's won because John just bit. Now, I know Arwin knows that, so I've got a couple of choices. He'll moan if I don't acknowledge that, won't you, Arwin?
I might.
Yeah, you will. Or I can do the right thing, which is to point out Arwin really wants to go round in circles with his own paradox that he's named Arwinian paradox. That would be to say, if you can't measure a geometric horizon, that's a physical Earth curve edge claimed to be our Earth curve horizon, then you can't get R from it. And if you can't get R from it, you can't refract it to a non-geometric position, refracted, because you haven't got R to do it with. But Arwin likes to ignore all of the mathematics, but phrase it around that concept until someone bites. Because then it can go round and round and round as long as his heart to his heart's content.
Right, it's kind of like fishing for globers.
Yeah, but you caught me out 2 days ago, and that's when I told you I was triggered, because I realised what you'd done after you got it going. You got the paradox going round and round in circles, and it becomes like a little snowball. Once you've got that snowball going, right, you can keep it rolling down that hill until it smashes up something. Smashing up something being me getting irritated or having to spend 5 minutes like I am now pointing out the Arwinian paradox. But you get mentioned a lot, so I'm sure you like it.
Exactly, it's a win-win scenario.
I know it's win-win for you, Arwin.
Hold on.
Arwin's
no.
got circles of unequal altitudes.
No. This goes past the Arwinian paradox because it doesn't deal with the horizon. If the horizon is Earth curve, refracted or not, you can't acquire an elevation angle.
Correct. Always bring it back to that first point.
Right, that's the geometry he was denying.
Well, you can't in the geometry, right? The geometry is a problem, right? Because things aren't where they seem to be.
There's where the end of the argument comes. Perfect. Thank you, Arwin. So you can't get the geometry. Well said. Their geometry is Earth curve geometry, though, isn't it, Arwin?
Yeah.
So you can't measure Earth curve geometry. There is no Earth curve. You can't measure it. That's the end of the argument. I mean, that is where we take one step further from the black swan. And I said earlier, I like it. It's a good way of proving that the Earth is flat. But ultimately, it's one step beyond the actual assertion in modus tollens. So it's not as tidy to assert the Earth's flat after the black swan argument. You can, and we do frequently, don't get me wrong. But...
No, but hold on. Technically, you can measure the geometry, but you have to funnel it through...
Don't give me this. I was in the middle of a
observation.
summary, and he's just... John summarised that point. No, you can't. You've denied it. That's the point. Don't rumpus me with the same bloody point. That is going to annoy me, sincerely annoy me, as opposed to annoy me for the drama of people getting the point. We got that bit, Arwin. John just addressed it. Do you need him to do it for a second time? Might be worth it anyway. Go ahead, John. If you're there. If not, I'll carry on.
If the horizon is refracted or not, either way, that means that your adjacent is curved and you can't acquire an angle.
Right, and his geometry is a tangent. Arwin, you can't measure the geometry of a sphere Earth at that point. That's the point. Just say I know. I know you know, and
No,
I
but
know
it's
you
not-
know I
it was-
know you know.
No,
Yes!
that's wrong. No, it's wrong. You can measure it within optics. You just can't calculate it within the geometry.
Right, I'm going to settle
You
my
can
Mason
still
friends on
measure
here.
it with optics.
Can we move on?
Measure
Any
it
evidence of
flat.
the distance to the sun?
I don't know where it is, but it's not over there right now.
Well,
Right,
if you had a
it's for me.
flat plane, and you had an elevation angle to it, you could assert a sphere and then get a distance.
Yeah, you'd need flat Earth angle like measurements though first. No, that's no good. That's not giving me a distance to the sun. That's saying if I measure an angle to a body I don't know the height of, and then infer it with the trig I use when I take that angle, and then use it as a distance on the ground, then I've got a 3,000 mile or 93 million mile if I insert an R value to that angle measurement I took off a flat plane. And that's a justifiable distance to the sun, John? I think not.
Well, no, because it invokes that error within the reasoning, right?
Yeah, I don't
Can't
want
be a flat
errors.
plane and a sphere.
I want an actual distance to the sun. I mean, I'm glad you said it in a way because sometimes we lose track of why we ask these questions, right? The monotony of asking them and not getting any answers because there aren't any, right? But why do I ask for the distance to the sun? Well, it's very pertinent at the moment, isn't it? Because part of the straw man they need when we've been handed down a flat Earth model with an actual ascribed height of a sun, Protothad might have done a lot better. Let's just consider this for a second. Let's say none of us realised that we've been duped into a false dichotomy when we were handed a azimuthal equidistant projection with the sun and moon moving over the top of it, right? We didn't know that. And Protothad got here and started asking us, right, given that you have got a height of this sun at 3,000, this trig doesn't work anymore. When I double the angle, it doesn't give you the exact distance across the surface anymore. Would that have worked? I suppose it would. Or if you put it to other flat earthers that had the same model affliction, it would actually work if they understood the argument. Because they're in a position, if they're honest, where they have to defend their height of the sun, don't they? Am I wrong? No, Nathan, we all agree. Oh, wow, I'm glad I'm making some coherent points today.
Just reiterate it. I was pondering because I weren't fully grasping it.
Okay. I ascribe a height to the sun based on flat earth presuppositions and false dichotomy models I've been given when I got here. I understand how celestial navigation works in terms of acquiring the angle and that giving you a distance on the ground. Once Protothad arrives with that circumstance in place, with me ascribed to a model of a flat Earth with a height of the sun, and he says, given your height of your measured angle, we've got all sides of this triangle, but it fails when I do the calculation from your height of your sun. You follow, Adam?
Yeah, this is...
So, would that have worked if I was in a position where I had to defend my height of my sun that I'd inferred?
Yes and no, I'd say. This is what I'm saying. This is one of those points where they try to make it our weak point, but the reality is it's also a very weak point in their model. Yeah, just because they got a distance, but they actually have to validate that distance, and it's that validation. The sun's one thing, but the stars are the other. And then for their model to be working mathematically, it becomes it just becomes impossible, doesn't it? Because all those stars have got different distances. We can't use geometric trigonometry. We have to use celestial navigation and its methodology to divine a side length. But what it doesn't do is divine a height. It remains, via the mechanism of celestial navigation, an apparent position. It's never defined in the calculations. Just an arbitrary point where things are calculated from, but its actual position is never needed because it doesn't exist.
And that model is a flat Earth model, though, right?
That is, yes. That's a two-planar model based on different ways of measuring distances on the surface and the sky.
So it's a flat Earth globe model versus a flat Earth model?
No, because the flat Earth model, that double positive isn't necessary because the methodology is implicit in terms of what it does as a function. You don't have to. I said it earlier in the show, or in the pre-show, I forget. Why say a flat Earth angle measurement? It's just an angle measurement, isn't it?
It's when you try to model that out to ascribe a height to the sun, is what I'm saying. That's when it becomes a flat Earth model.
Yeah, okay, I got you. To be fair, that was the point I was asking about. I lost track of my own point I was asking Adam about. Indeed. Yes, once you've got that model affliction, then you've got a problem on the flat Earth side too, because you've got a height. And that was kind of my point in asking. I'm pondering whether or not it's an issue in terms of if the majority of flat earthers who do have the same model affliction, they've just acquired a new one with a load of problems that lead them to the tip of the spear in terms of these kind of arguments, which are relatively complicated when they compose some conundrum that you've got to fathom out to try and figure out how they've duped their audience into believing you can't get a flat Earth elevation angle measurement to work on a flat Earth. You're like, okay, how have they done this? That bit's a little bit complicated.
But it is a lot of fun to figure out.
Well, Adam did a beautiful job. I mean, I hadn't bothered doing it, but he broke it down on Tuesday's live show for Quantum Eraser and just broke it down step by step really, really concisely, which I appreciated, Adam, because I didn't really wrap my head around what he'd done, because I didn't, at the time, concern myself with it. As I've been advising people, it's like, once you know that they've got to get a flat Earth angle measurement, in the first case, the angle on the right, I think it was 60 degrees or something, was the first basis for the angle that he's going to use to base the rest of the argument on. So in essence, what he's done is perform celestial trig, or celestial navigation methodology. I'm going to have to get the terminology right, because people do seem to nitpick it. And who can blame them? They've got nothing else. But you've got to use the method of celestial navigation to get that first angle, to then do the maths. Now, coincidentally, he's done it to give him a nice, convenient flat Earth height of the star, or whatever it was. I think it was the sun. Was it the sun? It doesn't matter. He's got himself a height. And then he's taken the angles back using regular trig to a different position from the star or sun or moon or whatever it was he was using. Well, I can concisely summarise that now. Why? Well, that's because of Adam. Because I've got a mathematician on the panel. Not because I've bothered breaking it down. I can't be bothered with that. I'm lazy. I just need to know angle, first step, flat Earth. That's all I need. Doesn't mean that
Can I
it's
take a
not.
stab at this?
Go on.
Yeah. So in their model, they need the sun at vast distances away. And I'll come back to that in a minute. In celestial navigation, it's an altitude above the horizon, maximum being 90 directly overhead of any star, sun, or planets that you're going to use from the Nautical Almanac. So why do they need it at these vast distances? Because their center of a globe model and Eratosthenes, if you go back to what he said, sun is coming parallel. So what's happening on the surface that's curved, I could deem as that vertex coming from the center because of the parallel sun rays. So they need it for that. However, in celestial navigation, it doesn't concern itself with the distance, just the angle in the sky, the altitude from 0 to 90 from the horizon.
That, and it's a little bit convenient to that they're using the word altitude when, like, you look down your street and you see your lights seem to get lower as they go away from you.
Mm-hmm.
They're not changing altitude. They're using an operation of perspective to trick the world.
Correct.
Exactly.
I got two slides in Master B. One that's called Distance Irrelevant.
While I'm bringing that up, I'll just say, yeah, Brian eloquently describes that as well in terms of the way it would change the height if you were actually using it in the regular trig to get the height. Then it would alter as it gets closer to the horizon. But you don't do that. It's not needed when you're doing celestial navigation. It's not used to derive the height of the star. That's not what you're doing. Now, further to that, just before 10th gets into this presentation I've put on screen now, he said, oh, well, when they have the star, it's a vast distance. Well, no, they've got a double header in terms of that problem too, because they've got a distance ascribed in the heliocentric model, and then they've got to project them out to an infinite distance on a celestial sphere when they measure the angle from the equatorial plane. That would be a flat disk in the middle of their dome of the heavens with the stars at infinite distances when they've got a ascribed distance in their model. Anyway, that's an aside issue. We've got distance irrelevant on screen.
Before we go to that, just to, the way we define these distances is not on a flat Earth model. It's not on a globe model. The way in which the distances are defined is via celestial navigation. Then flat earthers stick them on the flat maps and work things out, and ballers do what they do with their contortions and stick it on a ball. But the way in which it's done is through celestial navigation. Neither models are involved in the calculations. The model, the method that's used is celestial navigation, which both parties agree to.
Exactly. And when you start challenging whether or not your elevation angle's using a flat plane or not, you're not challenging us on what we say is used or what we say should be used. You're challenging the methodology of celestial navigation at that stage, anti-flat earthers. Let's get that clear. Distance irrelevant. Go ahead, 10th.
Yeah. So time and date. Based on two coordinates, altitude and azimuth, the horizontal coordinate system provides the general direction in which to find celestial objects. Although the distance of the visible planets, stars, and galaxies differs by billions of light years, the system ignores the depth of space as an object's distance is irrelevant for the purpose of locating it in the sky.
Right. That's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah. We don't calculate the height in celestial navigation. Whether it's a globe or a flat Earth, if you're doing celestial navigation, the stars do and the celestial objects are never assigned a height. Never happens. It can't happen because it's not how it works, put simply.
And the next slide will show a pictorial for that. Altitude, azimuth, time and date as well. The horizontal coordinate system. The horizontal coordinate system, also known as the Alt-Az system, is a method for describing the exact position of objects in the sky such as planets, the sun, or the moon. And as you can see here, you've got a flat baseline and an angle can be achieved. And the maximum angle is the zenith, so it can't go past 90, 0 to 90, perpendicular, right angle. Here we are again, full circle, so to speak, proving our point. Section could only work on a flat plane, not a curved adjacent.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm really enjoying the slides that we're getting from you, 10th. They've been epic, as has been commented on by a lot of people. You know, especially in the second channel. Might as well plug that. So subscribe today to my second channel, Nathan Oakley. If you're not a member, then you can see the uncut and after shows free. So they come out for members immediately after they get recorded on Nathan Oakley 1980. So channel members, or become a channel member if you want to support the channel and watch the uncut and after shows straight away. But if you don't, you can watch them for free. And that's on my second channel, Nathan Oakley. Actually, I might interrupt this housekeeping session 36 minutes into the live show to say, or to do a little bit of e-begging. So January and February for a smaller YouTuber is a very difficult time of the year. And that does catch up with me eventually, which necessitates me doing a little bit of e-begging. So smash the super chat, smash the PayPal link. It really is appreciated if you do so to support this channel. Thank you to all who have done so already. Really appreciate your support.
Smash it. Yeah, those visuals help. I'm a visual learner, so they help me a lot. Way to be, 10th.
I see your point, Neil.
Very sharp.
Well, you know, when you amass over 40 books on celestial navigation, all from their side of the argument, I'm just going to have years and years of these little slides and snippets from their books. I mean, I'm just using, as you guys correctly put, the well-documented method of celestial navigation, all Glober based, by the way, to point out the violation of the law of non-contradiction within the same books and articles. So this is where you got to use your critical thinking. If they say we have to assume the Earth is flat and stationary for celestial navigation to work, that's a clue. That's a clue when they're saying that.
That's the beauty. That's the beauty of it, though, right? It's from their books. You can't get around that.
I mean, it would be like an argument with a baller or an anti-flat earther. Okay, look, I know my books say I have to consider the Earth flat and motionless for everything to work. Okay, can we set that aside? I want to prove a globe now.
Yeah, don't get hung up on that.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's John's point. John's been saying that since the start of this discussion. They have to concede their argument in order to move forward in the argument.
Sounds crazy, doesn't it? But that's what then it's delusion based. It's no longer a debate.
Yeah, it's no longer agree, disagree. And if you want to argue the toss about what celestial navigation is and isn't doing, you feel free. But it's kind of the end of the road in that regard, because all of the other arguments that we have had up until now did have the opportunity for the opponent to beg the question and then justify the problem with their begging the question fallacy. I.e., if the Earth's a sphere with a radius of 3959, then every distance to horizon measurement can be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. But for refraction, using an R value that we can no longer measure to bend the horizon into a non-geometric position that's not blocking things as we assert it should if it's Earth curve, then that justifies my globe Earth belief in a refracted non-geometric horizon. So that argument starts with the begging the question of a sphere Earth and ends in justifying the problem that has arisen as a result of your begging the question fallacy. So it's a long, convoluted process. This is different. This is, if the Earth is flat, I can get my angle measurement. Now let's argue about how that angle measurement proves a sphere. That's what they've got to do. Unlucky. It's the end of the road for globe arguments. As far as I'm concerned, you're not begging the question at the beginning of this one. You're assuming a flat Earth. You must, because you can't get the angle if you don't.
Who was the one that said, I'll give you the flat Earth? Who was that again?
Conspiracy cats.
He wasn't giving it to us. It was necessitated by his argument.
Right. But he said, I'll give you the flat Earth. He had to.
We might as well said, given that I can't get around using a flat Earth elevation angle for this claim, we won't get hung up on the flat Earth proof that I'm now using to make my claim. Here comes my claim.
Yeah, that's good.
See, if you could just get past the point of concession, then they could argue within the delusion.
Yeah, it's not, I'll give you a flat Earth. It's if we can all just not get hung up on the fact this proves a flat Earth, then let's have a look at the Blackpool Swan. You ready, kids? Yeah, I'll give you a flat Earth. End quote. Conspiracy cats. Well, thank you very much, was my response. That's very kind of you. Welcome to Flat Earth. You'll need that to make this claim, won't you?
Like John's kitchen. Got to get past that point that you know his kitchen floor's flat, so you can move forwards, use calculations and measurements to demonstrate how curved it is. But if you haven't got the premise to get the angles off of a flat baseline in the first place, you've got no measurements to use to demonstrate how curved it is.
Black market flat Earth elevation angles are available. Smash the super chat if you would like a surreptitiously acquired flat Earth angle measurement slipped under the desk to you as an anti-flat earther. That can be arranged. Then you can talk about that angle measurement not having to have acquire it yourself from a flat Earth. And obviously, we won't mention 90. We'll just all understand that that flat Earth angle measurement you're using in your argument, you didn't measure it. I mean, it doesn't matter where it came from, does it? Who's asking where it came from, eh? Who's asking? What are you, the police? Does it matter where I got it? From a flat Earth, that's where you got it.
Oh, hey, up the fences here now. Must have heard you talking about flogging them.
He knows I'm trying to sell something on the black market. Chocolate's not far behind.
What happened?
Oh, we were talking about selling black market flat Earth elevation angles to anti-flat earthers so they can go forth in their claims using these flat Earth measurements to make their claim of a sphere. Now, obviously, if they've acquired them on the low, down, under the counter styly, then they didn't measure them, right? So what does it matter where they came from? Who's asking? Why are you, a policeman?
Oh yeah. That's the new hustle. That's what I got on the other side of the trench coat. One side is the geometric horizon. The other side is the curved adjacent angle. Yeah, I got that. I got all of those. 2 for $5 if you need it.
Wait, don't you own a star too?
And horizons. We've got all sorts of black market crap from the sphere left over. We've got to get rid of this stuff quick. Mike 808, thank you very much indeed for the super chat.
Get off the truck.
How many of that fell off the truck?
Price to move, guys. Get them while they're hot.
Yeah, got heliocentric nonsense by the boatload.
Can I read you one?
Yeah, sure.
This is from boating, motorboating.
Motorboating. Okay.
Motorboating.
These have got some funny. I've just got to say, what was it last time? Something about cruising.
Cruise the world, I think.
No, it was much more funny than that. But this one's equally funny. What was it again?
Motorboating.
Motorboating. Okay.
Okay,
Carry on.
I'm the posted. You're going to laugh even more. Give me 30 seconds.
Go ahead, 10th.
Check the picture first before I call you up.
Give me 30 seconds. I'm gonna put in.
Is that how long you last? Wow, I can't hold my breath that long.
Well, don't have dead air while I'm working. Come on.
I thought you were off. I thought you were going to be doing some motorboating for 30 seconds. I was looking forward to that.
Is he giggling?
We'll do some cruising next.
Okay, the cover's coming. The article's next. So have some fun while I get the next piece.
Okay. Motorboating.
Can we talk about how?
Go ahead, John.
Can
Sorry.
we talk about? Oh, I was just going to say, can we talk about how bananas can be apples if you ignore the fact that they're bananas now?
Look, I can provide black market banana apples, and who cares where I got them from? Just work under the premise that they're apples when they're actually bananas. Don't ask any questions about where they came from, and everybody's golden. Golden,
Green.
delicious, that is.
Just think about it that way. I mean, every time I get into my Acura, I think I'm getting on a motorcycle, even though I know it's a car.
Should be there. All you patient, dear friends of mine.
Yes, we are there with the text.
Oh, so did you like the motorboating cover since you...
I'm being honest, I'm slightly disappointed. It was not what I was expecting.
What were you expecting?
Razzle.
Razzle.
And dazzle.
Oh, Tassel. Pete and Perky.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. This is page 37. Let's start where which gave, right where it's the text is turning a little bit more solid, which gave him at first a hint of the true character of the universe, as we shall see. His heliocentric theory really was conceived nearly 7 centuries before the days of Ptolemy, but was to remain unappreciated for 2,000 years. Counterwise, we can have a good-natured laugh at ourselves today when we pick up a modern text on navigation. One of the first things we read is that in order to solve the problems of nautical astronomy, we shall assume that the universe is represented by a revolving celestial sphere of infinite radius, this sphere having its center at the center of a stationary Earth. Ptolemy was wrong, but his basic idea is still useful. How in the world are they saying the Earth is stationary when they say it's not?
Because the stars that you're measuring are going to be moving over the positions on the land that you want to move to. So it works if the stars are moving over the land to various positions that you can measure at the base of that star when it's over that piece of land, inferring that the stars are moving and the land is stationary when you do these sorts of things, i.e. celestial navigation.
How convenient. Would you care for another while I'm here?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, coming your way. This might be the one you're talking about.
What book was that from, sorry?
About motorboating. Stop it. All right, here comes motorboating and sailing. How's that?
Motorboating and sailors would have been more funny, but it's all good.
All right, here we go. Cropping it out.
Popping it out, eh? God.
Cropping it out.
Oh, cropping, my bad.
Oh, easy. Okay, here we go. You have it?
Yes. Navigation.
Concentrate on the sun. Just read below that. In order to know the geographical position of the sun, you must know the exact time of day. In celestial navigation, for conceptual convenience, it is assumed the Earth is motionless and all the activity is celestial.
You say conceptual convenience.
Yes.
Oh, I like that. For conceptual convenience, we must just imagine that it's not moving.
Geometric considerations, close cousin.
Right.
Why would you need to have this
dandy.
consideration? I'm not trying to steal your point, but why do you have to have this consideration? Again, the implication is a bit like when you... No, let's not compare it to anything. Let's just make the example. So, at what point do I go, obviously I'm moving right now, so for the sake of ease, I'm going to now ignore the fact that obviously I'm moving and just consider that I'm not moving? Isn't it stating the bloody obvious? I don't understand why it should even be implied that you should have to make this assumption at any stage. I'll just repeat what I'm saying. The implication being that in order to have to take a step to assume that you're not moving, i.e., if I'm on a train and I go, right, I can look out the window and see that I'm moving. But if I black out all the windows and then ignore the fact that I can feel myself jiggling about a bit, I can, in that sense, assume I'm not moving. But there's a reason why I'd have to take that step to make that inference that I'm not moving when obviously I am. Now, when you take that contextually back to where I am right now, sat here, I'm not in any way thinking, oh, I'm moving. Oh, well, now I'm going to perform an operation, so I better relinquish that obvious movement that I'm experiencing and consider that I'm not moving. It's like when I'm not moving, I don't have to suddenly stop and consider that I'm not moving. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. You said it in the
They,
previous
they
point
had
too.
to solve the problem, man. Wasn't that line used in what you read, Tim? In order to solve this problem?
Yeah. And go to the next one. from
That's
Eric.
funny because when you say that, it reminds me a lot of the NASA guy, the Orion trial by fire, when he's talking about, oh, they want to send people to this region of space. In order to do that, we have to solve the problem of the heavy radiation in the Van Allen belts, right? When you think about it, like, wait a minute, didn't you guys have missions back and forth through this place? And all of a sudden in 2014, 2015, now you need to solve the problem so that you can find out how you can send people to this region of space? That's funny.
Yeah. It's a Jedi mind trick inventing a problem. It's similar to saying we see too far. So you're implying that there should be a limitation in that statement. It's like, why are we having to infer that we're not moving? If I'm stood still, obviously not moving, I don't suddenly scratch my head and go, now that I've performed this following function, I better stop and consider that I'm not moving. No, I don't normally have to do that unless I am moving and I need to think that I'm not when I am.
Well,
Isn't that the gravity? Isn't that the gravity trick as well, where you say things are falling, but ignoring everything that's going up?
No, that's
Yes.
no, actually, no. That's a repositioning of zero in terms of what they say is a fixed position versus a moving position. So if you take literally what 0G can be delivered to you as a member of the public as, in terms of a physical experience, what is it? It's falling at a given rate. Well, they ascribe that in terms of their description when it's orbital as 0G. Well, you're falling at a constant rate. So all they've done is they've moved move 1 down to 0. And then when you take that scale and look at us moving, we've got a constant force on us. Got 1G when you're not doing a damn thing. It's like, well, wouldn't it make more sense on that scale to say when you're not moving a smegging inch, you're 0. And then when you're falling at a constant rate, that would be something you can ascribe a value to. But it isn't on their scale, is it? 0's falling, 1 is stationary. G, that is.
you
That's
want to go
fast.
to the next one with air navigation before
Yes.
I put the last one on?
Yes, air navigation.
So
Got it up this cover at least. Do you want me to go to the next one?
Yeah. No, yeah. Just go to. So this one's talking with the usage of a bubble sextant now. Okay, the other one was on the sea. The navigator must realize that the bubble sextant indicates the true vertical only when the instrument is at rest or moving at a constant speed in a straight line as perceived in space. If the Earth were motionless, this straight path in space would be a straight path over the surface of the Earth. Conversely, a straight path over the motionless Earth would also be a straight path in space. Have fun with that one while I put the last one.
Dun, dun, na, 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 na.
Such an archaic model.
We're just waiting for 10th man.
George Orwell,
Just
he
give us a
wrote an
second.
article about the flat Earth, and he said that navigation proves the globe because they do it based off calculations that the Earth is a globe, and the fact that they, get to their correct course or destination they aim at would verify the
Okay, tell us
globe.
what those calculations are. That proves.
I don't know. I read it in a George Orwell article.
Okay,
on
that's
the
fair.
flat.
No, that's a fair point then, P. What we're referencing is often inclusive of a disclaimer that says this is working on a sphere, but then when they go through the calculations that you're referring to without knowing, they make it absolutely clear that the only way it can work is on a flat plane, because you can't do the celestial navigation method if it's curved. And the reason is fairly straightforward. When you measure an angle to a star, that's two straight lines, not one curved line and one straight line. Simple.
You think George Orwell was incorrect?
George Orwell, was he writing celestial navigation books and detailing the 90 degree below the GP of the star, or the angle being two straight lines meeting at a vertex on a flat baseline? If he was detailing those things, then I'll agree with him. If he says that the measurements and then details nothing, gives no justification and no sphericity to an angle measurement, which is impossible, then who cares? If he says celestial navigation's working on, I can say celestial navigation's working in Narnia. Does it mean that it's true? Unless I offer some actual validity with some measurements, but you don't know what they are. You're just taking him as a word that the measurements, which definitely only work on a plane, and we can show that and do.
You think he's just making it up?
No, it's just, I don't know. I can't speak to the Orwellian motivation, I'm afraid. Sorry.
I think my next slide.
He's like famous for being an intellectual, and I can't imagine he would be like in error on this matter.
Okay, that's called
Okay.
Let me just deal with this just quickly. That's called an appeal to authority fallacy. Is he operating or describing or detailing with experience celestial navigation? No. So what? Because he's an intellectual, he should know how we acquire 90 degrees to a GP with a flat Earth angle measurement called elevation angle? He's not an expert in this field. So that's an appeal to authority fallacy. Okay? We done?
The next five slides will answer this. The next 5 slides will answer this.
Moving heaven and earth.
Now, I shared this the other day, so here we go. Go to the next slide, please. Chapter 1, you'd have to be crazy to say the earth moves. Science or insanity, ? Death and taxes are often said to be the only certainties, but there's something else. The earth certainly doesn't seem to be moving, no matter what the scientists tell us about the way the earth rotates on its axis. So that someone standing at the equator is moving around the center of the earth at a speed of over 1,000 miles per hour, it all seems perfectly still. We all believe what we are told about the earth's revolutions around the sun, covering a distance of about 584 million miles in a year, which is another 66,000 miles per hour or more. But we are taking it on trust. We can't feel ourselves moving. Those of us who have read a little further, or who have watched more programs on Discovery Channel, or who once bumped into a friendly astronomer, might also have learned that we, together with the sun, are circling around the center of our galaxy at an even more unimaginable speed, roughly 350,000 miles per hour, and that the galaxy itself is whizzing through space on a trajectory resulting ultimately from a big bang that created our universe. But we cannot feel any of this. It's not just a question of how it feels either. If our senses don't tell us the earth is moving, it is also true that for technical purposes, remember that phrase, it actually makes sense to assume the earth is stationary. If you look at a textbook on navigation, for example, you'll see it assumes that the earth is stationary and that all the heavenly bodies are revolving around the earth. The authors of such manuals probably know better than you or me that the earth is perpetually performing a series of complex motions, but they also know that you don't need to know this to steer your boat by the stars. You can go to the next slide. On the contrary, it makes things simpler if you assume the earth is still and only the stars and your boat are moving. Therefore, it is wrong to assume that technical demands, I told you to remember that, must be inevitably lead us to a belief in the motion of the earth. They don't. So how on earth did we ever come to believe in the motion of the earth? if our senses and our common sense tell us that the earth is not fast but steadfast, and if it is a requirement of a practical, useful technical art like navigation that the earth be considered stationary, why and how did we ever come to believe that the earth is whizzing through space with such phenomenal speeds? If we just set aside for a minute what we have taken on trust since we were school children, the idea that the earth is moving just seems totally crazy. It can't really be moving, can it? Next slide. Yes, it can. And what's more, we now all believe that anyone who denies the motion of the earth must be a crank or a fool. So how has it come about that it is now crazy to deny what actually seems to be crazy idea? The short answer is that we all now recognize the intellectual power and authority of science. Even if we don't know much about the details, we know that a moving earth is bound up with the latest astronomical cosmological ideas, which in turn are bound up with well-established theories of modern mathematical physics. We also have a strong sense, even if we can't follow the technical demonstrations, that this same edifice of mathematical physics has led to most, if not all, of the high technology that is now such an indispensable part of our lives. It is part of our scientific worldview that the laws of nature are so all persuasive and so interconnected with one another that to reject the claim that the earth moves would somehow have to entail not only, say, a denial that we ever landed men on the moon, but also that television sets work. But of course, there hasn't always been this kind of faith in the power and persuasiveness of scientific knowledge. Like everything else, our modern worldview has its history and its historical origins. If it was possible at all to pinpoint a single initial source from which the modern physical sciences developed and spread out, explaining more and more aspects of our world as they did so, and leading to more and more technical innovations. Last slide. The most likely contender for the starting point would be the claim by Nicholas Copernicus that the earth is in motion. One of the main aims of this book is to explain how it was that a highly technical astronomical theory, far beyond the mathematical competence and understanding of all but a very few people, came to have such far-reaching repercussions. Along the way, we will come to see why it was Copernicus's claim, first published in the middle of the 16th century, that was to have this seismic impact, rather than one of the various earlier suggestions that the earth might be in motion. You've been duped by pseudoscience.
Someone have something
Wow.
up on screen that they wanted to present? Who's
Yeah.
presenting? Go ahead, Adam.
Literally, just to respond to that, I'd like to say to you, Aries, failure. All of this is saying it's simpler to assume that the stars are moving. Well, George Airy set out to answer that question, didn't he? It's described as his failure, but reality is he uses a telescope to test whether or not the star field is moving or the earth is moving, and he does it by different mediums. And when the telescope was moving, then the path will be slightly different through the water. You can see here, look. And so to be able to see the star, when you put the water in, you have to increase the tilt. That's if the telescope's moving. If the telescope isn't moving, you don't have to increase the tilt. And you didn't have to increase the tilt, demonstrating that the star field is moving and not the earth. So this isn't science. This is zetetic proof, which uses empiricism, but to reach a logical conclusion rather than a cause and effect. It still tries to use empirical methods to come to that. So this is just kind of a logical proof as to the statements that 10th was talking about in those books, as to let's assume that the earth isn't moving. Well, actually, we can demonstrate it. And maybe that's the reason that celestial navigation assumes that.
I've just got to correct that. We can validate it as a null result in this instance.
There's no claim of science.
Well, Ares did though, didn't he?
He did, but I was hopefully making my point there that I'm not. This is logic that you can use to draw an inference from, but there's no science here. To try and say there's a cause and effect is incorrect. He might have done, and it's described as an experiment. Look, I was careful not to do the same. I'm not decrying the man, because the point still stands. That's the important bit, that this is demonstrable with logic as to which is moving. And if somebody wants to attack that logic, fine, I'd listen to it. But as it's demonstrated there, I think it's pretty clear that there's no need to assume that it's the star field moving, even though we know the Earth's moving, because this demonstrates to us which is moving and which isn't.
Yeah, that I'll agree with. I'm just going to read out a super chat from Theo Megawerty. He says, in Orwell's 1984, I think this is addressed to P. Mars, Winston is told the mathematicians can make the stars close or far, and the Earth is what they want it to be. And you will believe. I agree.
Not us.
Hold on. I agree with Theo. Thank you very much for the super chat, first and foremost. I don't think that was P. Mars's point. He wasn't referring to the novels in terms of Orwell and what he states. So, yeah. We can draw inference from the novels, but that makes us sound a bit less reasonable than P. Mars. I can't believe I've just said that when someone's giving me money. Oh, God. Sorry, Theo.
But P. Mars, if that was the guy saying Orwell when he came, he's appealing to authority. And then you said, what does he know about celestial navigation just because he's a philosopher and wrote a book?
Yeah. No, my point, I'm not saying my response to it wasn't invalid, and P even agreed, but it's more that Theo's then referring to something he's put in a novel.
Well, that's a novel.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the whole segment of that book I read talked about the very fact that we have to trust these people even though our senses tell us otherwise.
Correct.
Indeedy weedy. Any last comments on this before I round out and ask people to stay tuned?
No. They might say that, but that archaic bit of logic supports the archaic worldview.
I'll attack it the after show.
Not for long, Adam.
That I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. As I say, not the best of circumstances to be e-begging constantly, but yeah, smash the PayPal link if you did want to support this channel. January and February are always a terribly difficult month for a smaller YouTuber, so any support is greatly appreciated. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either Premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video. Shout out to Theo Megawerty for hitting the super chat just at the end of the live stream. He says, the point is, Orwell knew that maths can create someone's reality. He got it. Thank you for clarifying the point, Theo Megawerty, and thank you very much indeed for the super chat also.